Greetings YouTubers, Street Ronin here, just back again with another video about the Harley Davidson street rod. This is going to be basically an overview video talking about the bike. It's a 750cc, it's got a liquid cooled Revolution XV twin engine, max RPM is 9,000, but it's happiest sort of between 4 and 5. It's a 6-speed transmission, so it's got 6 gears, unlike the Sportster, which is 5 gears. It's got a 3.1 litre tank, and they say you can get about 52 miles to the gallon on that tank. It is quite good on fuel, take it from me who's owned the bike. It's pretty good. It's got 65 newton meters of torque, and it puts out about 70 horsepower. As you can see, my bike's not totally stock. I've got a Vance & Hines high output slip-on muffler there, and yeah, I do think I get a little bit more horsepower with that exhaust. It's a great exhaust, really sounds great. With that, I've put on the Screaming Eagle high flow air filter. Basically the one inside is just a normal air filter, and it's just been replaced inside with a red oil liquefied sort of filter from Harley Davidson Screaming Eagle. Just a bit more airflow in there. Like I said, the bike is great. It's not quite a cruiser, but it's not a sport bike, and the way I would describe this is if a cruiser and a sport bike had a baby, this would be their love child. It really sits in a class of its own. It's not quite as fast as a sport bike or a naked sport bike. It's quick, but it's not super fast, but it's fast enough, believe me. But it's also quite comfortable just to sort of blat around at 50 miles an hour, so it has that cruiser trait to it as well. And that's what I quite like about it. This bike makes me just want to cruise around, whereas my other bikes, naked sports bikes, I always felt like I needed to go faster. And I quite like this because I'm getting older now, and slowing down is a good thing. And it just makes me feel like a bit of a badass, to be absolutely honest. It's in vivid black, and what I liked about it, along with these kind of Sportster range, is the fact that it's kind of murdered out. It's all black, and it's beautiful. I mean, nobody can say that this is not a good looking bike. It really, really is. It's got like a drag style flat tracker bar, and it's got that low slung flat tank. Not many people like that, but I do. It gives the bike a very muscular kind of aggressive stance to it, which I really, really like. As you can see, I've put some crash bars on it as well, and I'll explain why I've done that. They're marketed as kind of crash bars, but really they're more like highway pegs, if I'm honest. The bike is a very capable machine, as I've said in my last video. It is designed basically for the urban environment. So if you are a commuter and you live in a built-up city, that kind of thing, the bike really, really does what it says on the tin for that. Harley have absolutely nailed that. It is brilliant around town, very, very agile, very nimble, feels very light when you're riding. However, I will say that the bike does feel quite heavy, like when you're kind of reverse parking or you're kind of muscling it around, pushing it around, because the center of gravity, the weight to the bike is very low. But once you're riding, once you're moving, it's really, really nimble, really, really quick. I've also, as you can see, put an LED headlight on the bike. Okay, the stock light on the bike is absolute dog shit. And I think, you know, sports riders as well can attest to that fact, that the sort of standard lights, they're not very good. I live in a very kind of hilly area, mountainous, and at night there's no street lighting, and with that stock light I really couldn't see anything, and I would shit myself when I was driving home late at night. So that LED is absolutely brilliant. It really does light up the road. I've also smoked my indicators, front and rear. The indicators are LED, okay, and they are actually quite bright and they're quite nice. The seat on the bike is really comfortable. You know, I can ride this for, you know, I've ridden this for straight for about 2.5 hours, and you know, my backside was peachy. It was absolutely comfortable, not a problem at all. Just talking about the lean angle, one of the major flaws of this bike, okay, is the pegs. They are situated quite high, and that's because of the way the bike's designed with the exhaust. It is the biggest gripe everybody has on all the forums with the street rod. It's a very kind of unnatural riding position. They're not rear sets, but they're not forward. They're kind of in the middle, and when you're sitting on the bike, you do cramp up after a little while. I've lived with the bike, I've had it for a year, and I've basically found you know, a good way to sort of get my feet on there. But I must admit, when I first got the bike, the foot pegs bothered me a lot, hence why I got the bars. Now with the bars, it's great. When you're doing a longer ride, you just stretch your legs out on the bars and it's absolutely fine. You can get forward controls for this, but they're around about £700, and those crash bars or highway pegs, whatever you'd want to call them, okay, they were $100 shipped. That includes the shipping to the UK, and that's from a little company in India called DDH Studios. This bike is really popular in India and Southeast Asia, and there's lots of companies over there that do aftermarket parts. The only problem with those aftermarket parts, if you watch some of the videos, is that these guys, they slap all these parts like sissy bars and everything onto the bike, and it just spoils the lines of the bike, I think. There's absolutely no storage on this bike, and I just don't think this kind of bike suits the kind of sissy bar luggage compartment type scenario. Basically I just ride with a backpack, so it's absolutely fine for me. This bike is designed for the urban environment, but like I said, it's a very capable bike. You can take this bike on the highway. When I first bought this bike, I basically rode it sort of 250 miles up to my parents because I was staying there. That was twisty roads, highway, motorway, traffic, and it was absolutely fine. A lot of passing power. Doesn't matter what gear you're in, this bike really does pull. It's very torquey in any gear that you're in. So I think a lot of people, when they look at this bike, they just don't really know what it is, because it's in a class of its own. Basically, it's not a cruiser, it's not a sport bike. So what is it? And that is the question. Where does it sit in the Harley Davidson lineup? If you think about the design brief for this bike, the urban brawler, the cruising around town, in and out, tight turns, it's absolutely made for that kind of environment. However, I've taken this bike on the freeway, highway, motorway, and it's brilliant. It's you can pass vehicles, it's got the torque when you need it, doesn't matter what gear you're in, it'll go and it'll keep going. Absolutely fantastic. The only thing that lets it down on a longer ride or on the freeway is just the foot peg placement. I've got the bars, so it doesn't really bother me, but if you don't have the bars, your legs do feel a bit cramped up. I'm 5'9", and I'm right on the cusp with this bike. I think if you're 5'9" or over, you shouldn't buy this bike. It will just be too small for you. If you're sort of 5'9" or under, then this bike could be the bike for you. Other things that I've done with the bike, just put a derby cover on there, the dark custom. I put a Harley Davidson logo on the oil coolant mechanism there, and I just want to talk about the suspension as well. You've got the piggyback dual shocks on this bike. Suspension on this bike is absolutely amazing. It's really, really good. It just soaks up all the bumps, and because you've got those kind of chunky tyres to the rear and to the front, which are sort of bigger than the Sportster tyres, yeah, it just soaks everything up. I don't get that jolting sort of a pain searing up my back every time I go over a bump. It is really, really good bike for that. So let's talk about what Matt Laidlaw, who's got a massive YouTube channel, he's obviously got a Harley Davidson dealership over in the States. A lot of things he says is the look, sound and feel of a Harley. I bought this bike from Harley Davidson, and at the time of purchasing the bike, I got them to throw on the Vance & Hines exhaust. And the reason I got them to do this, because I was very, very lucky. When I went into the dealership, it was in August, and I didn't know this at the time, but in August, that's when they bring out the new bikes, and they had 3 street rods left, and they were just trying to get rid of them. So this bike, it's sort of just shy of 7,000 British pounds. I got this bike for £4,500 brand new. So I had a bit of money to play with, and I was able to put the exhaust on it. So I've only ridden the bike with the high output exhaust on it, and I can tell you that with this exhaust you do get the rumble, you do get the shake, and you do get the sound. You get a really, really nice Harley sound. I've seen videos before with the stock pipe on, and it is really quiet. It does sound like a sewing machine. So if you are thinking about getting this bike, you definitely want to put a pipe on there. I think you'll be disappointed if you don't. So other than that, just talking about modifications for this bike. When I got into the Harley Davidson kind of world, I really didn't know what I was doing, and I knew that Harley Davidson, bar none, was the best for kind of customizing bikes. What I didn't know was that it's mainly for the Sportster kind of soft tail range, and because this is a newer bike, it's only been around since about 2017 roughly, there's not many parts you can get for this bike. So if you're the type of person that wants a bike and you want to really customize it out, maybe this isn't the bike. There are parts out there, don't get me wrong, but there's just not many. Things like seating options, there's not many. Going back to the indicator lights here as well, I didn't know, I mean these are the bullet indicators, but I didn't know with the LEDs you cannot swap the lenses out. I bought myself some lenses, smoked lenses, but the housing inside the actual indicator light comes right to the top of the bullet lens, and the alternate lenses that they provide, which you can buy anywhere, Amazon, eBay, and they're only a couple of quid. They've got these tabs on them, and the tabs do not fit into the bullet housings for the street rod. And I was told by Harley, if you need to replace the indicator, you have to replace the whole thing. You can't buy a lens for it. Hence why I basically just got some tint spray and kind of just smoked mine out. I'd like them darker, but obviously in the UK, you know, the light has to be orange, and I'm not sure if the bulb inside is orange or whether it's white. So I just gave it a little bit of a spray just to darken it out a little bit, because they're very, very orange. But I would like them darker, but I'm a bit skeptical to do that, because if I do them too dark, the orange might not show through. But as it happens, they work quite well like that. So just be aware, little things like that with customization. Obviously, you know, you can get a headlight, that's fine, that's a very easy install, and I'll cover that in another video. Derby covers, things like that. You can get grips and foot pegs. I have actually replaced my foot pegs with the diamond black. There's a shifter peg there and foot pegs on either side, and I intend to put the matching grips onto the handlebars as well at some point. So sitting on the bike, it's very, very comfortable. It's a nice wide seat. It is a comfortable seat for a stock seat, okay, and you're not really hunched over, but you are kind of leaning forward onto the bars. So I am thinking about getting a small riser for the bar. Just not that I'm uncomfortable, but I just think a little bit of a rise, a couple of inches maybe, it would just be a bit more suited for my kind of height and frame. Other than that, I mean, it is a very, very good looking bike. There's a lot of haters out there, unfortunately, and I don't really understand it. I kind of understand what Harley were trying to do with this bike. You know, Harley Davidson's going in a lot of different directions at the moment with the Bronx and the Pan America, and you know, they've always been criticised in the past by other biking communities that, you know, they're stripped down, they don't have a lot of tech, they don't have a lot of electronics and that sort of thing. If you want all that, then yeah, don't buy a Harley. I mean, this is just basically got your basic tachometer, speedometer. It doesn't even have a fuel gauge, it just has a light that comes on. Another thing, the indicators on this is like a normal metric bike. You've got your indicator there, you push right, push left, push to the centre to turn on and cancel, whereas other Harley Davidsons like the Sportsters have got them either side. If you're coming off kind of sport bike, naked sport bike, that won't be an issue for you, but you know, if you've been riding Harleys, you probably won't like that, and a lot of the guys that do ride Harleys don't like that. They're not self-cancelling either, so there is that. I've also put on some rough craft nut covers there, if you can see that, and also to the front there, just trying to black out the bike. But again, I mean, those ones are for Sportsters, and I've just kind of luckily that they fit. Like I said, modifications are quite rare at the moment. There's not a lot of people that are doing modifications, aftermarket parts for the bike. So if you are somebody that has a company that does parts for bikes, consider the Street Rod, because you know, there are videos out there where people do customize these and they make them look absolutely brilliant. Not that this doesn't look brilliant anyway. The only eyesore on this bike, I think, is that kind of tail section there, the way it comes out. There's a company called Toughside. Okay, they do a really nice fender eliminator that brings those indicator lights right underneath the brake light there, and your license plate is mounted underneath there. Unfortunately, they're out of stock, so I have asked them to message me when they're back in stock, and I shall be putting that on this bike, and I will do a video when I do that. Going back to the seat, Toughside again, they do some really nice seats with the diamond stitching for this bike. There's not many companies that do seats for this bike. It's very, very hard. I've literally scoured the internet for parts for this, and believe you me guys, there's not many. So if you are the type of person that really wants to sort of make the bike your own and customize it, this bike doesn't actually have a lot of parts. You can get different kind of air boxes and air filters, but I quite like that shape of that one there. I just think it's got that flat tracker dragster type feel to it, and I just really like that. So I've just kept it basically and just put the actual filter, I've just replaced the filter inside. Other than that, guys, that's going to be kind of it just for an overview of the bike. What I intend to do is at some point, when I get a bit of time, is I'll actually ride the bike and we'll talk about what it can do, what it's capable of, etc., and how it sounds. I would like to just say I've been inspired to do this for a couple of reasons. I just think that there's not enough positive feedback for this motorcycle. It is an absolutely great Harley Davidson. It really is. It is so underrated. It's kind of ignored, or you know, and people when they get on it, you know, are pleasantly surprised. I've had other Harley guys with soft tails ride this bike at bike meets that I go to, and they are really pleasantly surprised, and you know, they've got nothing but praise for it. I just think because it looks so different, you know, people are just frightened of change, aren't they? But you know, if you're coming from other brands of motorcycles, I mean, and I love all different brands of motorcycles, I love Triumphs, I love Jap bikes, you know, this is a really nice bike. You know, it's got that ghosted out graphic, you know, there which I really like. And you know, when I first went into Harley, the bike I wanted a Sportster. I wanted an 883, but I saw this and I did some research, looked at the specs, and you know, this will smoke a Sportster 883. This is a performance small Harley Davidson. It is designed for performance. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a Sportster hater. I absolutely love the Sportsters, and I've got my eye on an Iron 1200. And in an ideal world, if I could have a couple of bikes, if money wasn't an issue, and money is always close to our hearts, you know, being a motorcyclist, we'd all like thousands of bikes in our garage. And if I had the money, I would have a Sportster as well, and a Softail. But for my riding, what I use the bike for at the moment, this bike suits my needs. That's not to say that in the future my needs will change. I mean, now that I'm in the Harley Davidson brand, I do feel myself wanting to slow down a bit more, be a bit more comfortable. You know, I'm looking at sort of mini apes, that kind of thing, which is kind of leading me to look at Sportsters and Softails and that sort of thing. And in the future, when I sort of trade this in, you know, when my needs change, when my circumstances change, you know, I may well go up the ladder to either a Sportster or a Softail. But that's way in the future and for another video. So yeah, so the point is with this video is just to give this bike a bit of a positive feedback, really, and to people that are on the fence or don't know much about this bike, is just to kind of educate them so that they can make an informed decision. This is a great bike with one major flaw, and that major flaw is the foot peg placement. If Harley were to redesign this bike, like Naked Sports bike, maybe they should try and think of a way to put the exhaust underneath the bike and just have a stubby kind of pipe coming out at an angle, a bit like some of the Yamaha, the XSR, something like that. And then they could lower the foot pegs or basically put forwards on it. But that's just something for them to consider, because all the negativity of this bike is about the foot pegs, and I agree with that. The foot pegs are not great. I would literally, if I could afford it, I would have put forwards on it, but at 700 quid, it's a bit too expensive. Whereas $100, which is about 80 quid, I've got these bars, and when I need to stretch out when I'm on the highway, that's where my feet go, and I'm absolutely comfortable. So it's absolutely fine. So yeah, I mean, if you do want parts for this bike, look at DDH Studios or MK Designs India. They do some parts such as the bars, the crash bars, highway pegs, things like that for the bike. They do some kind of luggage and things like that. So yeah, by all means have a look at them. The other reason I'm doing this video is because I've been inspired by other moto vloggers, and I just want to give a shout out to them. And one of them is a chap in America called Carl, and he's got a channel called Motorcycling with Carl. He's got an Iron 1200, and he's a really light, down-to-earth, nice guy, just loves his bike, and you know, he does installs, rides, that kind of thing, and he's really inspired me to kind of do this channel, just to put a bit of interest into the street rod. So Carl, if you're watching, mate, thanks very much, appreciate your work, love your bike, what you're doing to it, and just keep doing what you're doing. So yeah, thanks very much. So the next video it'll probably be a ride or an install. Like I said, I'm going to get the tail tidy. Once I've done that, I'm going to replace the seat. So some videos there. I'm also going to review some gear, talk about Harley Davidson in general, because the other point I just want to make is, now that I've got this bike, I've had to change all my riding gear because to go with the bike, basically, which I think we all do when we get a new bike. And yeah, it's expensive, and we will talk about Harley Davidson and the Harley tax and how expensive things can be, but that is for another video. So again, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you want to see more, please like and subscribe. I do plan on doing more videos. I just want to get some interest in this bike. If you've got any comments, feel free to comment whether it's good or bad. If you like the bike, you don't like the bike, let's just start a discussion on this bike, because it's very, very underrated in my opinion. It really is like a sleeper cell. I mean, not many people know a lot about this bike, and a lot of people are pleasantly surprised when they ride it. And it's a head turner as well. It really does. I mean, it sounds awesome. I'm not going to switch it on because I'm at work and it'll upset somebody. But on my next video, I will start the bike up, go through the controls, and we'll take it out for a ride. So, fellow YouTubers, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully my videos will get better. I'm very new to this. I'm actually doing this on my cell phone. I don't have a camera yet, but again, that's more food for thought for more videos. I'll get a camera, do some proper moto vlogging, do some reviews on the kind of kit that I buy, and anything that I do to the bike, I will put a video up. So thanks very much, Carl. Thanks very much for inspiring me, and see you later. Stay frosty, brothers. See ya.